welcome back to another video game analysis. So last episode we talked about Minecraft, and one thing I was a little nervous about doing this, I just got excited about because I love talking about indie games because it really does show that video games, it's just becoming less and less of an argument that they're not a legitimate part of the media industry, where like a lot of people, because especially when the NES came out back in the 80s, video games were marketed as toys ever since the crash of 1983. It was a clever strategy by Nintendo because it helped sell their video games at a time where video games were considered, I don't want to play those, they're all bad and whatnot. So you flash forward to today, and we're back at that point. And a lot of people predicted a few years ago another game crash. I don't see that anymore. I mean, I did see some legitimacy in that claim a couple of years ago, maybe, when everything felt very stagnant, and everyone was still making PS3 and Xbox 360 games, with the Xbox One and PS4 out. But that's something that's just disappearing. And indie games really highlight the idea that the video game industry is no different than any other type of media, which is why I really like talking about it. And I really enjoy indie games. And really, it's the only reason I got Steam, because I have plenty of access to. I'm a console gamer. I am. People can yell. PC Master Race can yell at me all you want, but I know they're good people. People play PC games, but it's just not my thing. But I do like playing indie games, and ever since indie games came on the consoles, which we will talk about in more detail, it's something I've been also putting time into in my console gaming. And I'm sure people are always wondering why I'm pointing this way. It's because I know there's a TV back there. That's for all my retro consoles. You know what I mean. But anyway, yeah. Pretty long intro, I know, but let's get started because there really is a few aspects I want to talk about indie games today. So one of the most important aspects I find when talking about media in general is the idea of, it's the word risk. I talked about this in the Minecraft video where it's like, yeah, it's hard to take risks. And, so basically that's why you really see a lot of the same type of game. Even back in the day, they're guilty of this too. A lot of side-scrolling platformers showed up. A lot of people wanted to rival Mario. It was the big money maker, and that's what people did. And it's no different today with first-person shooters and whatnot. Now the survival genre is getting extremely popular. It's just the idea that people don't want to take risks. It's the same with movies, the same with television, same with everywhere when it comes to popular media outlets. Video games tend to not want to break the barrier. They don't want to do new things. It's just they need to make money. You can't blame them. Honestly, so many people are so against it, but you really can't blame them. And as long as they make enjoyable products, there's plenty of things I can talk about that make gamers mad, like the way they handle DLC and whatnot. But that's another topic for another day. For right now, Thomas Was Alone is a game I really love, and it was actually a Let's Play. We're going to go back on the idea I was talking about last time where the internet made Minecraft popular. Well, the internet make all indie games popular, because that's the only time you can ever play them. Especially for people who made indie games in their garage, and they just do it for the sake of having people enjoy it. Then all of a sudden, hey, here comes a sponsor saying, hey, you got a pretty popular game. I'd like to be that guy who wants to be hip with the kids, and have you advertise my business with your game. Not that Thomas Was Alone ever did that. I mean, the fact that Thomas Was Alone and all the games I'm showing off are on the Wii U for regular retail purchase is very impressive. Some of these indie games even make it on a disc, like Terraria did, and Shovel Knight, and Minecraft itself, of course. But yeah, here's a challenging, fun little game. It didn't last long. It doesn't have 3D graphics. It's not in HD quality. It doesn't even have models. It has a message to it. That's what's really cool about indie games. They're allowed to take more risk because there's a lot less chance of failure. It was made in a cheaper way, which is why a lot of indie games, which a lot of people are starting to get annoyed by, make hallmarks to the 8-bit, 16-bit era. Which is fine as long as they make it work like Shovel Knight did, but sometimes there's just so many of them. You see, what I'm getting at is even indie games can get oversaturated when it comes to wanting to make a buck, It's part of how media works. It's part of how products work in general, especially for entertainment. But this game is really interesting. It took the idea and took a message that you don't need these incredible graphics or just like pretty glossy graphics in general to make a great game. And this puzzle platformer kind of genre I really adore. It's just fun. I have a good time playing this kind of stuff. And it's not long. It's not an adventure. It's not this huge thing. It doesn't have huge production value. But that's okay because the developer of this game really put a lot of time and effort into making this fun, and he had a good idea and he went with it. A kind of idea you'd never see in the mainstream kind of gaming world. And that's what I want to bring up here. Like, this is an idea you wouldn't see a AAA designer make. But instead, you take like a AAA company, like one of the big three, Nintendo, PlayStation, Microsoft, and they all take these games and say, hey, we'll sell it here, give us a cut. And, like, it goes above and beyond that. A lot of indie games are really fun. A lot of indie games do replicate modern games just with a twist of their own. Like, if you didn't like a part of a game, fan games are technically different than indie games. It's the same idea. Some guy took a game and wanted to make some improvements to it. Like, a perfect example from a recent AVGN video I saw was, well, recent in general. I didn't see it recently, but basically the nerd was ready to quit. I think everyone knows this moment, but then he saw a few fan game homebrews where they listened to his complaints about all the some of the videos, and the one I remember sticks in my mind was Castlevania Simon's Quest, where that was very famous. It's one of the nerds. I think it was his first video, or it was his second video, I think, and yeah, every problem he had, this guy homebrewed it. He solved it. He made some sort of solution to the problem. And, it says a lot. It really does. It says a lot to how the gaming industry can work. I mean, of course, there is copyright law. There is things that we have to be respectful of and keep mind of. But at the same time, going on to indie games are their own original ideas. And they're ideas that can get really popular. There's ideas that can grow. Like there's a lot of Super Meat Boy-like indie titles right now. And, big AAA games, big games in general are great too. Don't get me wrong, when I say this whole thing, but they're focused on making the big, huge stories and the cinematographic photographies and the habaloo-badoo-badoos, and indie games are cutting it down, stripping it down to what they are capable of, and you're really left with just a good time. And a lot of them do replicate older generations, which is good too. That's why I like handheld gaming. And a lot of them want just to make some new, big, fresh idea like Minecraft did. So yeah, let's keep moving. One thing I failed to mention in the last bit was I loved the intro credit scenes where they show all the people responsible for Thomas Was Alone. Where, you got a guy that said, hey, follow me on Twitter. There's another guy, one man made the music, one man made this, one man made that. It's a really cool thing. Here, I really, in today's world of indie games, there's a really fine line of what is an indie game nowadays, because they end up on consoles, they end up making good profit. And this game in particular, I don't know if I should call it an indie game. I really think it is, but at the same time, it was made by a professional company, Screw Attack. And one thing that was really famous in recent times was the fact that the big companies like Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo would show off what indie games they would get on their console at E3 and everything. It's really cool to see how far along indie games have come with that. But, that being said, there's also this question of if they're still considered indie games. And I think so. I think an indie game is just a small team who made a game that normal AAA companies wouldn't make. You wouldn't see a Legend of Zelda game be an 8-bit style like this game anymore, doing side-scrolling platformer. You wouldn't see Mega Man do that either, to a certain extent. Probably you would, but that's another topic for another day again. But the point is, AVGN, like, I use this game to really say, this is a game that knows the internet exists. You wouldn't see a company go up to a internet reviewer, even one as iconic as the Nerd, and say, hey, let's make a game about you. We'll make it reference all your stuff, and we'll make it in a 8-bit style like the games you review. They wouldn't do it. Thankfully, Screw Attack took that idea, because they can. Because in a new climate of indie games where they allow it on consoles, they allow it to be sold on Steam, there's there's real money in indie development, and it makes people known. Let's take what's his name, Christian Whitehead, for example. He's currently making. I'm sorry if I got the name wrong, but I know his last name's Whitehead, but at least probably a screen name. But personally, I think it's an impressive resume there. He was the person responsible for making all of the Sonic iOS remakes. Him alone. You know, it's his company. He just, and I don't know what his gaming history is, but I would consider him a indie developer because he does it on his own. You know, he makes games that not many people would. And then, you know, one day Sega said, "Hey, can you make our Sonic titles?" And now he's making Sonic Mania. You know, he's taking a huge part in that. I love that idea. I think it's fantastic, you know? Um, that being said, too, you have indie developers getting into the big time. You have companies being well known. It's a better market now. It's a more flourished market. There's a market where gamers can show what they want. Let's look at Undertale for a second too. That game is incredibly popular. I haven't played it yet. I really want to though because it's right down my alley. I'm a huge Earthbound fanboy, and so I know for a fact that I will enjoy this. And you know, not many people, especially in America where Earthbound sales flopped, would take that risk of making a game based on Undertale, unless it was in HD 3D graphics and it had this like new system to it, and then it gets to the point where it's just not Earthbound anymore. You know what I mean? You know, like indie games allows developers to show their stuff, and they allow developers to do things based on people like game reviewers or something like that. Do things based on game design and level design, or even franchises that weren't looked at in years, and really just explore them. You know, it makes people more well-rounded gamers to me. And, you know, that's what's really cool about indie games. That's what I really enjoy about indie games. It makes me more well-rounded as a gamer. And it really introduces me to new ideas. If I played this Metroidvania game, maybe I never got into Castlevania or Metroid. Maybe I'll want to start getting into that. You know, and I personally think, you know, everyone's talking about where this retro game collecting craze came from. I personally think it's because of indie games. Because they replicate... Because, you know, a lot of these guys were kids, of course, but a lot of them were playing the games they're basing their new games on. You know, so maybe they made a game that's very similar to the original Legend of Zelda. Well, people want to buy an NES and see what all the hubbubaloo is about. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's pretty much it. All of the unmarked territory or abandoned territory in video games can all be made by indie development. And, you know, it's something that's really strong now. It's a new legitimate way to build a portfolio for game designer or just to make money. I mean, a perfect example is Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Freddy Fazbear, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's. That's it. It's already been... the craze is gone. They're making a movie, though. I actually would like to see that. And all of this from one guy made a game based on some complaints they had on another game he made. And it became huge. It made sequels all in 1 year. It became this huge phenomena. It's getting a movie. It got toys. You know, like especially in Minecraft. One thing I should have mentioned was I go to a toy store. I go to Target in the toy section, or Best Buy, or whatever has a toy section. And I'm looking at these figures, and they have Minecraft figures. And I look at it closer. They're YouTube people who play the game, and it's a great connection here. You know, the internet and indie games really go hand in hand. I love the idea. But let's just do one more bit here, like we always do, and let's call it. Then we'll call it a day, and we'll do our thing. Now, we're back to Little Inferno. I did a little walkthrough Let's Play style thing in the past on my YouTube channel. I really enjoyed this game. I love it because it's a game. I really want to highlight what indie games can do, and this is definitely an example of it. This game is all on one screen. You know, like it really emulate. Like I know the developer probably didn't mean it this way. I'm probably reading too deeply into it, but this really just is a reminder of old Atari level games, but just in a new fashion. Like they didn't make this Atari graphics because they would like take out the awe of burning things. That's the whole game. You're burning things. You're taking actual this company sold you a little fireplace, and I like there's outside elements of mailing that I think I'll do a little shameless plug and encourage you to watch my video series on this. It's only a few videos, but you know I showed off the combos it takes to beat the game. You get letters on the game. You meet you meet your neighbors. There's the mailman you meet, and you're in a world outside this building. You don't want to escape this world because there's this whole world that never stops snowing, and you know people miss the warmth. They miss everything about it. They want to escape this world, and the little inferno fireplace was a thing they bought to stay warm and to just forget about their troubles. You know, all look at this. This is one screen. I was able to explain all of that about the story. Here I am burning a miniature sun, and I burn miniature planets and a cloud of all things. It's just a really it really impresses me how deep they've gone with this, and I'm not going to spoil what happens at the end, but the end just blows my mind with the way they set up the outside world around you and how you got the story from just this one screen, and all you're doing is burning things, but you're having an enriching experience doing it. You're really interested in the art style. You know, it really reminds me of like Tim Burton-esque kind of thing. The Tomorrow Corporation got really creative with this. They have a new game out right now. I haven't bought it yet, but I really plan on to because I was really impressed with this title. It's short. It doesn't last long. It's something you wouldn't put on a Blu-ray disc to sell to consumers for even $40, and that's okay. You know, like like I don't remember what I spent on this game. I don't remember how much it is, but I remember it's worth the price. It is what it is. You know, that's something you really can take away from indie games. It is what it is, and there's no problem with that. It's a different way to play. It's a fun way to play too. It makes me feel like I am a more well-rounded gamer. I feel like, I feel like everyone should enjoy an indie game. I feel like they should escape what is in the mainstream world of gaming once in a while. Like I'm not, and of course, I enjoy the mainstream world of gaming too very much. I think I made it very clear that I play a lot of Nintendo. I'm also a fan of. I'm also a fan of mobile titles lately. I have my own. I have a PS3 I like to mess around with. I play on Steam. I like playing my indie games. I like playing games I missed out on that I might find on Steam. I check things out. I remember I got Steam all because I couldn't play Arkham City because there was no Wii version, of course. And they said, "Hey, dude, just buy it on Steam." And I didn't even know what that was because I was such a noob. But here I am. Yeah, and nowadays I have Armored Edition for the Wii U, but in the meantime I noticed, hey, what's this game, Super Meat Boy? What's Limbo, which ended up being my first Let's Play? It's a lot of fun. Look at this creativity here. You burn these tiki torches you buy, like these little idols, and you're asleep the whole time. They start singing at the sight of being burned. There's a lot of there's tribal elements here you can analyze from this, but I won't. Yeah, look at it burn. Look at it burn. So that's all we have for today. And next episode is going to be our last for 2016. Yeah, I don't know. Usually this is the point where I say when you finally get the hang of doing these kind of videos again, and then you just have to end it. But I think I'm pretty good now. I didn't have any awkwardness coming in this year. I don't think so anyway. I mean, of course I did. That's just who I am. But I mean like legitimate, like, oh, I'm so nervous. How do I do this kind of thing? But yeah, so next week, I always like the last video to be something that everyone would like to talk about. We're going to talk about Star Fox. I talked about Star Fox before, but I really mention it more of the fact of why do people want a new Star Fox game? Because that was the big topic at that time. And this time, we're just going to talk about Star Fox the way the VGAB always talks about new franchise. We talk about the characters, talk about the story, talk about the gameplay. I mentioned stuff like that in the last time we talked about Star Fox, but I want to get more in depth with it like I did. Same thing I did with Kirby this year. Yeah, we're going to talk about Star Fox. There is a new game now. We have Star Fox Zero. So I'm glad, like we got what we wanted, and let's just see how that came out. We're gonna talk about things, and yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. So that's what we're doing. You keep playing, you keep being that well-rounded gamer, and yeah. If there's anything I missed, if there's anything I got wrong, if there's anything you would like to add to the conversation, please do not hesitate to leave a comment. You should like, you should share, you should subscribe. I'm going to ask for that stuff because that's who I am. And thank you all so much for watching. I've been Billy, or Video Game Analyzer. Have a good day, good night whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you next time.